Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Corps studio. Welcome to the show. Alright, so on today's episode, I've got the updated 2024 Most Hated Commanders list for you. And I will let you know, this is not based off on my opinion. This is based off of the community's opinion in general, because this is based off of the EDH Rex Salt score from 2024. And I actually did some cool math things, and I actually said, you know what? I want to see where things are at this year compared to last year, and said, what's the difference? What movers and salt shakers do we have? Good joke right there, right? In the salt list. So let's jump into it. Starting off, I did the top 200 cards, and I said, which of those are commanders? And there's actually 43 of them in there. 43rd place, we've got Old Gnawbone, and this is the perfect card to start things off with. It's got a 1.53 salt rating, and it was not on the list in 2023, and it is up from last year. And also, the reason why it's perfect to start with is it's a good example of a card to say, this is probably on this list because of, in my opinion, it being in the 99 of Dragon Tribal decks, not necessarily because it's a commander, because it's not all that popular of a commander. There you go. 7/7 Dragon flying for a 7-mana in green. River creature control deals combination player create that many treasure tokens. A very powerful effect. It is limited to being in mono green again as a commander, but again in Dragon Tribal, yeah, you got 5 color, you got like the Air Dragon, you throw those in play, you swing once, and you just win because you made 50 treasures. So yeah, there's a reason why this one is salt inducing. Next up, on the other end of things, at 42nd place, again, out of that top 200 from this year, Sliver Hive Lord, 1.55 on that salt scale. And this one is on the list, in my opinion, because of its role as a commander. A 5/5 Sliver for 5 mana in Wooburg. Sliver creatures you control have indestructible. So this is a very, very somewhat obnoxious anthem effect, essentially. That's like, hey, unless you got the right type of removal, you're not touching my board at all. And essentially, again, Slivers are a tribe where it's all anthems, all lord effects, and being like, yeah, okay, this gives this, this gives this, this gives this. And by the way, they're incredibly powerful now, and you can't touch my board, so you can't stop me, and therefore, that might annoy you just a little bit. So it is a powerful tribe. It's a powerful commander for a powerful tribe, and it's an effect that, again, if you just happen to have a Wrath of God, you're just staring at it in your hand, you're like, why are you worthless? Usually you help me and you're worthless. Blasphemous Act as well. Any of the, normal board wipes are just like destroy. Yeah, farewell can deal with it, sure. But like, okay, normally you're like, yeah, I need something else. So yeah, that is why this one's on the list. Next up, 41st place, down 8 spots from last year. Actually, this is Najeela the Blade Blossom. Again, a massive move down. Salt score, though, still at 1.56. So let's talk about why this might have moved down after we talk about the commander itself. A 3/2 Human Warrior for 3 mana in red, but it is a Wooburg commander. Whenever it attacks, you may have its controller create a 1/1 white warrior creature token that's tapped and attacking. And then Wooburg, untap all attacking creatures to gain trample, lifelink, and haste till end of turn. After this phase, there's a combat phase. Activate only during combat. This is one of those commanders that literally is just a combo on the commander. It's like, oh, yeah, it doesn't say like activate only once each turn or whatever. Okay, yeah. Yeah, we can go infinite that quite easily. So there's quite a few ways to do that. It's an incredibly powerful commander. I would say that the reason why this one is going down on the salt list is because, well, others kind of moved their way up. We'll talk about why on those. But also, I do think that this one is, the further and further we get away from when this one was printed, I feel like less and less play it's seeing as a commander, but still, it's incredibly powerful. So yeah, it is on this list for that power potential, the combo potential. That's why it is still making the top. Next up, speaking of power, Winota, Joiner of Forces. This one's actually down 11 spots. Again, I think also, like, the further you get away from a commander being printed, sometimes the, depending on the commander, especially when it comes to, like, the power ones, like, typically, you'll see those maybe go down a little bit, while other ones, like, oh, no, this is newer, this one's more scary, comes up. We'll see. Anyways, 1.58 on the salt scale, 40th place again, 4/4 Human Warrior for 4 mana in Boros. Whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may put a human creature card from among them on the battlefield, tap to attack, gains indestructible out turn, with the rest of them on your library in random order. Now, this one is basically very, very powerful, and it's also one that can take a good amount of time to resolve, because if you are swinging with, say, oh, I don't know, 10 non-human creatures, and then you're like, okay, all right, let's do the first resolution. Top 6 cards. Ooh, I've got some good options. Oh, okay, a couple of humans to pick from. Yeah, let me just take my time doing that. A minute later, you make your choice. Okay, next resolution. All right, top 6 again, top 6 again. It's going to take some time to resolve. It's very, very, very powerful. You can definitely hit some things off the top. There's definitely some luck involved with it, too. You're like, oh, I just happened to hit this off the top. It's perfect for this scenario. My goodness, you all lose. Yeah, so it's a very powerful commander. Again, down 11 spots this year, though. 40th place. Next up, Ragavan Nimble Pilferer. I love seeing this one on the list because it's like, yeah, I mean, like, it is a card that is quite, I mean, it's low to the ground, and technically it does something that many players out there maybe don't like necessarily. It's 39th place. It's down 13 spots, though. Salt score still of 1.58. It's a 2/1 Monkey Pirate for a single red mana. Deals combination to a player, create a treasure token, exile the top card of the player's library. Till end of turn, you may cast that card. I mean, okay, it is low to the ground. You're basically guaranteed to get some hits in with this and to be able to make some treasures quickly and get off to a very quick start. But also, you are kind of stealing your opponent's things, and they don't like that necessarily. Like, you're not technically stealing. You're like, okay, I get access and I can cast it, but that's kind of stealing. So there you go, pilfering at the very least, right? So this one is on the list again, down 13 spots. Moving on, 38th place, down 14 spots though. Salt score of 1.59, Tulane Teller of Tales. This one used to be much, much, much higher up on that list. And again, the further and further we get away from, certain commanders being printed, and that there's some exceptions, of course, like new ones move in and say, hey, I'm the new scary salt thing on the block. A 2/4 human druid for 5 mana. In Bant, Vigilance, whenever you cast a creature spell, draw a card, then you may put a land card from your hand on the battlefield, pay 3, tap, return target creature you control to its owner's hand. I also think that some commanders too slow down with their pace of players building decks around them, or even ones that, this is one that I feel like some people have probably taken apart at a certain point, because other players yeah, I don't really want to play against that, where you're just like, okay, I put Shrieking Drake in play. Oh, I did it again. Oh, look, another island. Oh, I do it again. Yeah, this is one where it's incredibly powerful. They literally just printed like a busted commander, and they're like, let's sell products so players play Brawl Online. That's kind of how they wanted to go about that, if I remember correctly, back in the day when they had this. Plus another one on this list here shortly, which is a much higher. That being said, yeah, this one is on the list because of its role as a commander and because it is so powerful. Next up, though, 37th place, down 10. Salt score still of a 1.59, a 3/4 Angel with Flying for 4 mana. That's Linvala, Keeper of Silence. In mono white, activated abilities of creatures opponents control can't be activated. This one, in my opinion, it's not a very popular commander at all, nor would you really expect it to be. It is on the list because of its role in the 99. It is a stacks piece. It is like, hey, you can't do something. Typically, players don't just build decks around commanders like that, but yeah, you never know. Next up, Atali Primal Conqueror. This one is at 36th place. It's up because it was not actually in the list in the top in 2023. And again, the newer commanders, you're going to see that, from last year to this year, this is somewhat newer comparatively. Its salt scores 1.59, and it is so incredibly powerful. And it's got 2 sides, both of which can make you salty. Here we go. A 7/7 Elder Dinosaur Trample for 7 mana in red. Enters the battlefield. Each player exiles cards to the top of their library to exile a non-land card. You may cast a number of spells from one of the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana cost. Also pay 9 out of Phyrexian Green, transform it. Only at sorcery speed. Flips over into basically Blightsteel Colossus. 11/11 Trample Indestructible. Deals combination to player, they get that many poison counters. So slightly different way to do Infect, but basically Blightsteel Colossus on the back. So again, there is that, hey, Blightsteel Colossus, a very, very salt-inducing card that if it was a commander would definitely make this list, is very salt-inducing. But also on the front side, it's like, this can just be I cast my commander and I win because I hit miscellaneous things off the top, and you're also stealing opponents' things too. So yeah, it's definitely on this list for a reason. Moving on, a very, very new commander that is on this list from Bloomborough, which was not long ago at all, 2 sets ago. 6/5 Flying, Trampling, Flampling, Elemental Bird, Maha, Its Feathers Knight for 5 mana in black. War, discard a card. Creatures opponents control have base toughness 1. Salt score of 1.62 already. Again, was not in the 2023 list because it wasn't printed in 2023. It's printed this year. It is already making waves in saltiness, essentially. And for a good reason. This is, again, a 6/5 Flampler for 5 mana. Nothing all that special these days, which is something to say. Also, ward, yeah, okay, that's a little annoying, have to discard a card to target it. The thing that, if you literally took off all that, if this was like a 0-5 with nothing, no ward, and just had creatures opponents control at base toughness 1, it would still make this list. Because essentially, again, your opponents are never going to have creatures in play. If they put creatures in play, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I cast this one spell that essentially makes them all have -1/-1. They're gone. Or, oh, I just have this perpetual effect in play that gives all creatures -1/-1. So you literally can't have creatures in play opponents. Yeah, there's a reason why this one's so salt-inducing. It is powerful. Yes, it's monocolor, but it is powerful, and it can just kind of shut players out of the game. That's the reason why it's pretty salt-inducing. 35th place again already. Next up, Avacyn, Angel of Hope, down 3 spots from last year, 1.62 on the salt scale, 8/8 Angel, Flying Vigilance for 8 mana and white. It and other permanent you control are indestructible. Yeah, I mean, this is basically like Sliver Overlord, but for everything, but in mono white, and yeah. So there's a reason why it's up there. This one is kind of a combination, I would say. Like, a little bit of it is a commander. It doesn't really see that much play as a commander. It's, I'd say, like a tiny bit there. Mostly about it being in the 99, because, like, literally if you just, like, hit this with a lot of different strategies, you're like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, I cheat in the play or whatever it's in. All of a sudden, my entire board, you can't deal with it, and you're not going to stop me from doing anything. There you go. Next up, Gaddock Teague. Oh my goodness. Down 5, down to 33rd place. Salt score of 1.63. A 2/2 Kithkin Advisor for 2 mana in Selesnya. Non-creature spells with converted mana cost 4 or greater can't be played. Non-creature spells with X in their mana cost can't be played. A Stax Commander and a Stax card in Staxy decks. Anytime you have a thing that says, like, hey, your opponents can't do this, or, like, these things just can't happen. I mean, I guess this isn't just opponents, but you're not going to build a deck around that. So, being able to be like, okay, yeah, you can't do this. There's a reason why players don't like that, and it is very much a Stax piece. It's not because of, like, the power level of this commander. It is because of the annoyance factor of this commander. Next up, 32nd place, down 2 from last year. Kozilek, Butcher of Truth, 1.65 on the salt scale. 12/12 Eldrazi for 10 mana. Whenever you cast this spell, you draw 4 cards. Annihilator 4. From the graveyard, you shuffle. It's got that Shuffle Titan thing. This one, again, is like a combination of, like, it is a commander in it in the 99. Probably more so in the 99. It's a bit more popular. That being said, it's still a very potent commander. Yeah, I mean, it is the factor of, hey, it's got Annihilator 4. If you swing with it, your opponents are in a lot of trouble. So there you go. Basically making them sacrifice 4 things. It's just kind of obnoxious. So it's incredibly powerful card. One that gives that player value right away again with that 4 cards. And also if it's dealt with, they can get it back. And in fact, like if you're playing a mill deck, you especially don't like this thing because you're like, okay, I'm milling them. Yeah, they're down to 10 cards. All right, milling you for your last 10 cards. They're like, oh, okay, I hit my Shuffle Titan, so I guess I just shuffle my library. No milling. Yeah, it's a card that can just shut down a strategy. That's not the reason it's really on this list, but there you go. Another reason. Next up, Atraxa Grand Unifier, up 3 spots from last year, has somehow gotten solved here. 31st place, 1.66 on the salt scale. 7/7 Phyrexian Angel for 7 mana in a lot of colors, everything but red. Flying Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink, keyword soup right there on top of that. ETB is really top 10 cards in your library. For each card type, you may put a card of that type from among the real cards in your hand. The rest of them on your library in a random order. That is artifact, battle, creature, enchantment, instant, land, planeswalker, sorcery. The amount of value this can give you is absurd, and the fact that they did not put that as a cast trigger is even more absurd. Wizards like knew what they were doing with that. They're like, we want to make this popular, so we're not going to limit it. That's kind of like how they determine things these days. They're like, you know what? We don't really care if the Myojin are popular, so we're going to limit that in a way. It has to be cast from your hand, not the command zone, but we're not going to limit Atraxa because we want to push that one just a little bit. So yeah, just on an ETB, are you kidding me? This is one where, again, the amount of value you can get is absolutely absurd. Again, count with me. Artifact 1, battle 2, creature, enchantment, instant, land, planeswalker, sorcery. That's what, 8 different card types? So you have the potential to, on ETB, hit 8 things to put in your hand, which you then just have to like, oh, okay, I blink it with an Ephemerate. 1 mana. Blinks it twice, this turn and next turn, and then I get potentially up to 8 more cards again, and then 8 more cards again. Now, you won't hit 8 cards, all right? You're going to hit, I mean, you definitely can, but you're probably going to hit like 4 or 5, which is still absurd on ETB off the top 10. So yeah, the amount of value this can have is crazy. And also it is a 3-shot KO, which can very easily become a 2 or 1-shot KO with the right build. Yeah, this one as a commander is quite powerful and quite obnoxious. Moving on, the Dragon, down 7 spots actually this year. 30th place, 1.67 on the Salt scale. A 10/10 Dragon avatar for 9 mana in Wooburg Eminence. As long as it's in the command zone of the battlefield, other dragon spells you cast cost 1 less cast flying. Whenever one or more dragons you control attack, draw that many cards and may put a permanent card from your hand on the battlefield. When it comes to like decks that annoy players, it is interesting to see like certain tribes on there. Like, again, dragons are on there now. We've already seen slivers on there. Certain types of tribes like that are just get a lot of very powerful cards that have a lot of support and have a commander with a powerful effect. And one effect that literally, like, this one does irk me just a little bit. I've actually talked about this on previous episodes too. Like, I personally don't like Eminence. I think it's a very poor design because it's just, oh, you get a free benefit for doing nothing. You basically start the game off with a landline, essentially. Leyline, or a landline. You get a leyline, essentially, and you just start off the game when you get, like, cost reduction for that for a tribe that is quite powerful already. On top of that, when you put this down into play, if you swing with enough dragons, you probably just win, drawing a ton of things and also being able to just cheat something into play as well. It is interesting again that this one is going down, it seems like, though, when it comes to the saltiness again, as we get more and more and more powerful things, the more and more power creep we are getting. It seems like this one is going down slightly, but we shall see. It's probably going to hold on here for a while. Moving on, 29th place, down 7 from the previous year. The salt score of 1.73. We've got Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. A 10/10 Eldrazi for 11 mana. Cast a spell, destroy target permanent, indestructible, Annihilator 4, and then the Shuffle Titan thing. Now, this one obviously great comparisons to Kozilek, because it's basically the exact same thing, just some slight differences, right? Instead of drawing 4 cards, this one destroys something and has indestructible. Indestructibility, I think, is what really, really hampers people here. And it's like, ugh, ow. Okay, so it's Annihilator 4 plus it's indestructible. Hard to deal with. Gonna keep that Annihilator going. And also, sure, yeah, it also destroys a permanent. A reason why it's up here again. Most likely 99. Not necessarily it as a commander, but still as a commander. Yeah, definitely quite threatening too. Moving on. Not in the 2023 list, because, yeah, Modern Horizons 3. It is a newer card. 28th place, we've got Emrakul the World Anew. Who knew Eldrazi? Upset players. 1.74 on the Salt scale. 12/12 Eldrazi for 12 mana. When you cast a spell, gain control of all creatures target player controls. Yeah, you knew this one was going to be salty the second that they designed this and you saw that line. Flying protection from spells from opponents that were cast this turn, pretty obnoxious as well. And on top of that, when it leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control. Madness, pay 6. Colorless. Okay. This is a commander that's got a lot of annoying factors going for it. Yeah, it as a commander, I would say, is probably why it's on this list, because, yeah, just having in the command zone, just like, oh, okay, yeah, you get your army out, okay? Everyone get your armies out. Get ready to go. Okay, yeah, okay, magic. Here we go. Okay, your army's mine. You have the best army, now it's mine. It's mine. Mine. Thank you. Okay, now I have your army. Okay. Ooh, a couple turns later. All right, I've already done a lot of things with this army. It was a lot of fun, but that player over there has got a better army. But also, I'm swinging at this 12/12 anyways. I want to get that army, so I'll bounce this back to my hand, discard it with something, and pay 6 to get it back out and steal that army. Yeah, it's mine now. Okay, I stole your army too. Yeah, being able to just obnoxiously, permanently steal armies and then sacrifice them when you don't need them anymore, and then get another army, pretty crazy, pretty obnoxious. And it just being an incredibly powerful Eldrazi that is really hard to deal with, and it's a 2-shot KO on its face. Yeah, it's definitely going to make this list. Moving on! The first sliver, yet another sliver on this list. Down 2, though, from last year. 27th place, salt score of 1.76. A 7/7 sliver for 5 mana in Wooburg with Cascade. On top of that, sliver spells you cast have Cascade. So apparently, giving Cascade to all your slivers is more annoying to many out there than giving them all indestructible. That being said, like, this is also just on a different power level when it comes to that, because, yeah, this is just, okay, you play your slivers, you get free other slivers. That's basically it. And being able to just do some crazy, absurd plays with this, some absolutely absurd breaking of value, just giving everything Cascade that you have, is pretty crazy. So yeah, and this also can be certain weird decks as well, where you're like, okay, this into a card that counters it into a Blightsteel Colossus is also something you can do. Check out my episode on that one. But anyways, this is not on this list for that reason. It's on this list because, again, Slivers can be an annoying-ish tribe to play against because it's all anthems. It is all lords, and this is a crazy lord effect for them all. There you go. Next up, Myriam, I never know how to say this, Sentinel Worm, a 6/6 Dragon Spirit flying, ward 2 for 6 mana in Teamer. Whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield, you control, create a token that's a copy of it, except the token isn't legendary if that dragon is legendary. 26th place, up from last year, not even being in that top 200 cards of the Salt score at all in 2023. Its Salt score right now is 1.79. This one has been skyrocketing up because, well, its popularity has been going up, up, up. It is, I can't remember if it's like taken over from the Dragon or not, but like it's up there. It is one of the most popular tribal commanders out there for one of the most popular tribes out there. I think the most popular tribe. Again, dragons are incredibly powerful, and again, this is an absurd effect for them. Again, and having ward 2 for no reason. Wizards just throwing ward on things that don't need them. Anyways, being able to say, okay, yeah, take all those great dragons that you have, and all of a sudden, you get an extra copy of them. Oh, including the legendaries, which you shouldn't be able to get an extra copy of, you get an extra copy of, and that stays in play. By the way, you could, like, populate that or make extra token copies of those tokens, because now they're not legendary too. So if you want, like, 40 Niv Mizzets in play, have fun with that. Yeah, incredibly powerful commander for an incredibly powerful tribe that can give you some obnoxious dragons in play and make more of those obnoxious dragons. Again, we talked about Old Gnawbone earlier. Old Gnawbone plus this equals, hey, double the amount of treasures for double the amount of hits, and have fun with all of that. Absolutely crazy. This one has skyrocketed up this list, and yeah, it might just keep going. Next up, also not in the 2023 list, another one that's been skyrocketing up in the Salt score. 25th place, we've got Joda Unifier, 1.8 on the Salt scale. 5/5 human wizard for Wooburg. Legendary creatures you control get +X/+X for X number of legendary creatures you control. Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards to the top of your library to exile a legendary non-land card lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost, but the rest of your library in a random order. This is one of those commanders that, yeah, is just incredibly powerful. They literally didn't need to make this card in the way that they did. They didn't have to have both parts of this. They could have taken out that first line of text or the bottom chunk of text, and it still would have been a good commander, still would have been a popular commander. But you know what?
Let's make the first sliver meets like Heroes Podium, basically for legendaries.
Is kind of what they did. They're like, you know what? We're going to do Legendary Cascade and also a giant Legendary Anthem on the same card. Here's the thing, Wizards. When you make things a bit too easy, many players out there will maybe gravitate toward that commander and then just chuck all the legendaries in the deck and be like, it's good. And yeah, it's a very potent commander. So it's a commander that is quite popular, way too easy to build powerful. And again, the cascading free value plus the giant anthem can definitely annoy some players. So yeah, there's a reason why it's skyrocketing up. Next up, Corvold Fae Curse King. All right, we talked about another commander from those Eldraine precons years and years and years ago. This one is down 6 from last year. 24th place still, much higher than the other one though, with Tulane. 1.82 on the Salt scale. 4/4 Dragon Noble flying for 5 mana in Jund. Enters the battlefield or attack, sacrifice another permanent. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, put a counter on Corvold and draw a card. This one, again, more so, I mean, not more so than Tulane. Tulane is nowhere near as popular as Corvold, and that's why Corvold is higher up on this list, and it's just annoyance factor is crazy. I think that this is one that players really gravitated toward, when this one was made, and it got really popular, and then that popularity started to wane a little bit because, like, people know that this is kind of annoying to play against, and it's really kind of overpowered again. Being able to just draw a card anytime you sacrifice literally anything, especially these days when we have, like, this makes a treasure, that makes a treasure, this makes 10 treasures. So many things that make treasures these days that you just get to sacrifice draw with that, while you're also getting counters on this for some reason too, is pretty obnoxious and pretty crazy. Also, your turns are absurdly long with this because you're like, oh, I did this. I sacrificed this Evolving Wilds. I sacrificed this treasure. I drew all these cards. I sacrificed that. I swung for 21 at that player. They're gone. yeah, it can take a while essentially to do your turn because you're sacrificing so many things. It's an absurd value engine, and yeah, not surprised to see it up here. Surprised to see it go down a little bit though. One that I'm surprised to see jump up 9 spots though, 23rd place. What in the world is going on with Kinnan Bonder Prodigy? 1.84 on the assault skill again, up 9 from last year. A 2/2 human druid for 2 mana in Simic. Whenever you tap a non-land permanent for mana, add 1 mana of any type that land that permanent is not land, any non-land permanent. There you go. Pay 7 mana in Simic. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put a non-human creature card from among them on the battlefield with the rest of your library in random order. Now this is a card that has been around since Ikoria, and yeah, I'm not sure exactly why this one jumped 9. Like, it has been annoying. Basically, it's an absurdly overpowered pushed card that also has a lot of combo potential too, and it's incredibly low to the ground. But like, is it becoming more popular recently? Like, please let me know in the comments below. Like, have you seen this one become more popular in your LGSs and playgroups, and maybe that's why this one's going up? But like, I thought this one most players like were kind of avoiding playing for the most part, but I guess not. So yeah, it is getting more popular, and apparently with that, yeah, its salt score is going up. Moving on. Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. Yet another one of these Eldrazi that's more so like probably the 99. It's still absolutely obnoxious in the, as a commander itself, but like in the 99 is probably more so where you're seeing this one. Down 1 from last year, 22nd place, salt score of 1.86, a 10/10 Eldrazi for 10 mana. When you cast a spell, exile 2 target permanents, indestructible, and then whenever attacks defending player, exiles the top 20 cards of their library. Okay, here's the thing. Again, indestructible, gets rid of things on cast, and it's a giant 10/10. Those things, yeah, are kind of obnoxious. That being said, it wouldn't be on the list. I mean, it might be on the list still just because it's an Eldrazi and people don't like playing against Eldrazi sometimes. But also, like, defending player exiles the top 20. This one somehow gets pushed over that versus Annihilator 4, which in my opinion, I would rather play against this than Annihilator 4. I'd be less salty against this one, but that's just me. Some players don't like it when their libraries are touched at all. That includes mill, that includes exile, etc., etc. So some players don't like to see like their favorite cards, their best cards, go away permanently. Yeah, some players just don't like kind of mill. And that's probably why it's up higher on the assault scale. Again, down 1 from last year, though. Next up, also down 1 from last year, 21st place. Coma Cosmos Serpent. Salt score of 1.88. A 6/6 Serpent that can't be countered. Cost 7 in Simic. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 3/3 blue Serpent creature token named Coma's Coil. Sacrifice a Serpent, choose 1. Tap target permanent's activated abilities can't be activated this turn. Or Coma Cosmos Serpent gains indestructible on turn. Yeah, this is incredibly powerful. You're like, oh, it's a 7 mana thing. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're in Simic. You can easily get this out. Also, again, it's incredibly hard to deal with. Again, you literally can't counter it. And also, if you try to get rid of it, they're like, oh, I can sacrifice one of my 85 Coma's Coils and keep it alive. Because, again, literally you are getting 12 power across 4 bodies with each stripper on the table because it's on every single upkeep you're making one of those. And, again, you can sacrifice them to either shut down your opponent's things or protect Coma. So, yeah, it's an incredibly powerful and with some annoying effects commander. Definitely a salt-inducing card. Next up, down 7 spots. 20th place right now, and one that used to be so high on the list, but again, we're getting other things that are pushing it down. Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, still quite up there though. 4/7 Praetor Vigilance for 7 mana in white. Other creatures you control get +2/+2. Creature spells control get -2/-2. Again, salt scale of 1.89. Yeah, this one is one that, okay, as a commander, yeah, it's obnoxious, but you are in mono white. It's probably more so in the 99 card. It sees more play in the 99 than as a commander, essentially. And it's just a card that, when it's put down, it's like, oh, okay, we're playing a very different game now. It's kind of like Maha in a way where it's like, all right, yeah, okay, I've got my little army of, oh, they're all gone. My army's gone. Yeah, I'm playing a little token deck. I'm playing like an elves deck. Or vampire deck. My entire army's gone. Everything's gone. I can't play any more creatures ever again, and your creatures are huge. So again, having that giant push to your side and the giant downside, and also Praetors, yes, the Praetor travel decks also, they can be a little obnoxious with their giant effects as well. But yeah, I'd say more so it's like the 99 of just like, oh, big effect, hurts a lot of things. There you go. Next up, Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. Speaking of Praetors, We've got 19th place, down 3, salt score of 1.91, 6/6 Phyrexian Praetor, trample and haste for 6 mana in green. If you put one or more counters on a permanent player, put twice that many of each of those counters on a permanent player instead. Top of that, if an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent player, they put half that many of those kind of counters, the permanent player instead rounded down. This one is on this list for a couple of reasons. First of all, well, hey, shutting down your opponent's strategies if they're like, I'm playing a counters deck. And you're like, no, you're not. Not at all. I'm playing a Super Friends deck. No, you're not. Like, literally, it just shuts down certain strategies and say, you don't get counters on your things, essentially. You get half as many, and sometimes that means none. Again, literally, if you have, like, hey, I get a creature that comes up, play with that counter on it, you're like, no, you don't. No, you don't at all. And on top of that, of course, doubling up the counters, this can also be a Super Friends commander. Getting double that can be absolutely crazy. And then also you can do, poison things. And some players don't like to play against, infect poison. And that just makes it quite quick to take players out. So there you go. Moving on to 18th place. Oh my goodness. Not in the 2023 list because, again, a newer card. Salt score of 1.91 already. My goodness. Ulamog the Defiler. Ulamog, 3 iterations of this card are on this list. Isn't that pretty crazy? That's got to be the most. I mean, we shall see. I guess we're going to go up a little higher to see if there's even more types of, iterations of other ones. But yeah, Ulamog the Defiler, a 7/7 Eldrazi for 10 mana. When you cast a spell, target opponent exiles half their library, rounded up, ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. Ulamog the Defiler enters the battlefield with a number of counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. Ulamog has Annihilator X for X, a number of counters on it. It's a pretty absurd card. It just really is. It's a card that, yeah, as a commander and as a card in 99, it is on this list for both of those reasons. Wizards, when they made this, like, when it first, actually, it was, before it was spoiled, it actually was leaked. And people were like, yeah, there's no way this can be real. They wouldn't print something like this. And it's like, oh, wait, they did. They did. It's a very obnoxious effect. Again, ward, sacrifice 2 permanents. It's hard to deal with, and if you're going to deal with it, you have to pay a lot to do so. Again, it gets rid of people's libraries. People don't like when their libraries are touched. Some people don't. On top of that, again, the Annihilator X part is like, oh, by the way, it's probably coming in with at least like 5 to 7 counters on it. So Annihilator 5 to 7 is pretty absurd. But of course, it's not limited to just those. You can like get counters on it in a lot of other ways. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, Annihilator for 20? Haha, your board's gone. Yeah, there's a reason why this one's on the salt scale already. Next up, Atraxa. Speaking of being on the list multiple times, 17th place, down 2, salt score of 1.92, 4/4, angel for 4 mana, everything but red, flying, vigilance, death touch, lifelink, being rancid, proliferate. So again, this is one of those that's like on the list because, I mean, it is, I believe, still the most popular commander out there. So just because, of its popularity and just players seeing it all the time, it's going to be up there a little bit when it comes to, it's a powerful commander and people see it a lot. It's going to make players salty in this way or that way. It is one that, again, like when you're doing proliferating things, some of those can be seen as a little annoying to some players out there when it comes to playing a Super Friends build. All planeswalkers, that can be a bit annoying to play against because typically those involve a decent amount of wraths and also just like taking a good amount of time in a turn with your 6 planeswalkers in play, deciding what to do, and then as an opponent having to keep track of all that as well. Or also, like I mentioned earlier with Vorinclex, yeah, poison. Some players don't like to play against poison as well, so there you go. Down to this year again to 17th place. Next up, Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow, 16th place, up 3 from last year. Assault score of 1.93. One of the most powerful commanders of all time, in my opinion. A 1/3 human ninja for 3 mana in Dimir. Commander Ninjutsu for just 2 mana. Whenever a ninja you control deals combination with a player, reveal the top card of your library. With that card in your hand, each opponent loses life with that card's mana value. A commander that, in my opinion, does get more and more powerful as more and more sets come out because you get different things like Eddie just pointed out to me. It's like rooms. Rooms now, yeah, are other cards that can definitely go in Yuriko decks because they're like cards that you can play at a low CMC but technically have a high CMC or mana value, whatever you want to call it, off the top of the library. So yeah, you can drain opponents and still like get a lot of value of playing things. It's also a commander that of course is up here because you cheat on commander tax. You literally don't pay your taxes. You just literally just keep playing this for 2 mana, which is pretty obnoxious. So yeah, it's incredibly powerful, pretty obnoxious. 16th place. Moving on. Elish Norn back on the list again at 15th place. Down 1 from last year, Salt score still of 1.93. A 4/7 Phyrexian Praetor with Vigilance for 5 mana in white. If a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers additional time. Permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanent your opponents control to trigger. Yeah, that's kind of mean. So here's the thing. Again, like when it comes to a lot of the monocolored commanders, you're like, oh yeah, it's probably just like in the 99. Yeah, this one also as a commander though, because oh my goodness, just knowing if you are sitting across the table from the player playing this commander and you're like, yeah, I've got like an ETB blink deck. It's just shut down against this. It literally is just like, oh yeah, my things don't work. Not at all. Okay. And also, again, the player who is playing this commander, yeah, they get an absurd amount of effects. They get double the effects. So they are just rubbing in your face, like, I get double, you get nothing. Your stuff does nothing. That's great. So yes, being able to, again, have this as the commander or the 99, it has an obnoxious effect. And again, these Praetors, like, make things really, really salty because they're like, I get twice as much and you get nothing. So there you go. Next up. Narset still up here on the list. In fact, up 3 from last year, 14th place. Salt score of 2 on the dot. 3/2 Human Monk for 6 mana in Jeskai. First strike hexproof. Attacks, exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast non-creature spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. Again, this and Kinnan were ones that I'm like, these went up? Oh my goodness. Yeah, these are ones that were like the words out on like they're overpowered. This one especially is obnoxious because you attack. Congratulations, off the top 4 cards, you hit an extra combat spell, or you hit an extra turn spell. Congratulations, do it again. Okay, do it again. Okay, do it again. Okay, do it again. Yeah, just having an absurd solitaire turn against a commander that is really hard to deal with because, again, of that hexproof. So you can't stop it, really, once it gets going, and then it's just like okay, you're playing for 20 minutes. We know how this is going. Okay, I'm going to go get a coffee, and I'll be right back. Yeah, Salt score of 2. Moving on. Sen Triplets down 4 right now. 13th place, though, this year. Still, Salt score of 2.05. 3/3 Human Wizard for 5 mana in Esper. Beginning of upkeep, choose target opponent. This turn, that player can't play spells or activate abilities. Plays with their hand revealed. You can play cards to that player's hand this turn. The ultimate, hey, what's yours is mine kind of a commander. So being able to just basically control what someone is doing by taking their things and saying, hey, everyone, look what this player has. Okay, now those are mine. I'm just going to cast their things. Fun. Yeah, being able to just shut someone down for a turn and say, I get all your things. Your best things are now mine. This one's always going to be a salty commander to play against. So, yeah, they are the masters of your mind is a very apt flavor text for this card. Next up, Edgar Markov, 12th place, down 1. Salt score still of 2.05. A 4/4 Vampire Knight for 6 mana in Mardu. Eminence. Again, that Eminence word. One that I don't like. Whenever you cast another vampire spell, if Edgar is in the command zone on the battlefield, create a 1/1 black vampire creature token. First strike haste. Attacks, put a counter each vampire you control. An incredibly powerful commander. Again, literally just, hey, you're playing Vampire Tribal, which has a lot of support. You've got a lot of great low-the-ground vampires, and every single time you play a vampire, guess what? You get another vampire. And by the way, when I get this in play, if I ever choose to do so, cool, I can pump those vampires as well right away. But again, with that Eminence, literally just like you have a ley line to start the game off that cannot be interacted with, and your opponents are just like, oh, okay, you just get free extra value for doing nothing with your commander. Great. Moving on. Down 6 somehow. Urza, Lord High Artificer, 11th place this year, 5th place last year. Salt score still of 2.07. What in the world? How is this one moving down so much? We shall see what is above it now. That being said, a 1/4 Human Artificer for 4 mana in blue. Enters the battlefield, you make a 0/0 construct artifact creature token with. This creature gets +1 for each artifact you control. Tap an untapped artifact you control, add blue. All of your artifacts are mock sapphires, essentially. Pay 5, shuffle your library, exile the top card. Until the end of the turn, you may play a card with paying its mana cost. Yeah, all of your artifacts are mana rocks is an absurd effect. On top of all the other things that this does. A mana sink for you to cast things for free off the top. A ETB that's just like, oh, hey, make something that's going to become absolutely massive. And by the way, also you can just tap for mana right away, too, because, yeah, it's Urza that's got the ability and not the creature itself. There you go. being able to just throw all this onto a commander and be like, yeah, this is fine to design, is pretty absurd. There's a reason why this is salt-inducing. You could literally just grab a handful of artifacts, chuck in the deck, and it's probably going to be a pretty good deck around Urza. But of course, with a very tuned Urza deck, it is absurdly overpowered. So yeah, down 6. I'm surprised to see it down 6, but yeah, 2.07, still a ton of salt there. Moving on, 10th place, up 2 from last year, even saltier this year apparently. 2.08 on the salt scale, a 5/5 Phyrexian Praetor. We got Jin-Gitaxias, Progress Tyrant for 7 mana in blue. Whenever you cast an instant, artifact, instant, or sorcery, copy that spell, choose targets for the copy. It spell triggers only once each turn. Whenever an opponent casts an artifact, instant, or short spell, counter that spell, triggers only once each turn. Being able to, again, double up your things, and then half your opponent's things, or even in this case, potentially being like, oh, no at all to your things, is pretty crazy. Yeah, players don't like when their things are just like constantly countered, and this is a commander that just constantly counters things while also giving the player who plays them double the effect. So yeah, a reason why this one is getting salty and saltier. It is just a very salt-inducing card. Moving on, Toxrill the Corrosive, up 1 from last year, 10th place last year, 9th place this year. Salt score of 2.1977 slug for 7 mana in black, but it is a Dimir commander. We'll get to that in a second. At the beginning of each end step, put a slime counter on each creature you don't control. Creatures you don't control get -1/-1 for each slime counter on them. Whenever a creature you don't control, they slime counter on it dies. Create a 1/1 black slug creature token. Pay Dimir, sacrifice a slug, draw a card. Yeah, okay, here's the thing. This is, again, in that same kind of thing like Maha, basically, where it's like, okay, you don't get a board, ever. You never get a board. And if you try to start doing a board again, it's not going to work because every single end step, all these slime counters are going to add up. Again, literally with each trip on the table, it's basically your opponents get, your creatures get -4/-4, essentially. So good luck keeping creatures in play. Good luck having them all just die and make me a bunch of slugs, which I can sacrifice for card advantage if I want to. So literally there's just a continuous board wipe, essentially, just in play that generates value for the player. And again, with those slime counters, yeah, you can proliferate those two to make things go even quicker if you really want to do that. So yeah, this is a I stick on the board and your opponents can't do anything type of commander. And yeah, that can get quite annoying for a lot of players out there. Moving on. Emrakul, the Promised End, on this list yet again. 13/13 Eldrazi for 13 mana. Costs 1 less cast for each card type among cards in your graveyard. When you cast it, gain control of target opponent during that player's next turn. After that turn, the player takes an extra turn. Flying triple protection from instants. Again, hard to deal with. 2-shot KO. That can be cast at a reduced cost, but the important thing here is basically Mindslaver in a way. Now, that player gets an extra turn after the turn that you steal from them. That being said, you are stealing their turn, and you will decimate their hopes and dreams by playing all the things that they play, or we're gonna play, incredibly wrong, like targeting their own things with a removal, or swinging into situations they shouldn't be swinging in, or taking out their best friend player who they've made a deal with, and then you take them out, and then they've got nothing left at all. So yeah, basically, what's worse between Emrakul's, one that steals creatures or one that steals a turn? Apparently, according to the community, the Salt score has spoken. This one is the worst one. Moving on. 7th place, down 1 from last year. We've got Shieldred the Apocalypse, 2.29. 4/5 for Phyrexian Praetor with Death Touch for 4 mana in black. Whenever you draw a card, you gain 2 life. When an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. This is an absurdly powerful effect. Again, literally in the 99 sure of a Praetor deck or whatnot, yeah, this is absurdly powerful. But of course, as a commander, just literally throwing this down and being like, okay, you know how one of the things you like to do in commanders draw cards? Too bad. Now it's going to cost you a ton of life. And by the way, I get to gain life when I do that. There's also combos that work well with this too, where it's like, oh, yeah, draw a ton of cards and you lose. Cool. Good for you. This is a commander that is absurdly powerful. That, again, punishes players for doing what you want to do typically in Commander. It's the reason why it is so salty. Next up, one that is quite funny on this list because, like, you go from, like, Shieldred to, like, Hakori Dustdrinker. Like, yes, there's a reason why this one is salt-inducing, but is nowhere near as popular. 6th place, down 2 from last year. Salt score of 2.51, though a giant jump in salt. a 2/2 spirit. Lands don't untap during controller's untap steps to the game. Each player's upkeep, the player untaps a land they control. This is a stacks commander that doesn't see much play at all because, yeah, most players don't want to play against that. And it is a stacks piece in the 99, of course, that, you don't typically see at casual tables. And if you do, you're gonna probably leave the table. Anyways, this is a card that, of course, is just so resource draining, slows the game down to a crawl. Players hate that for the most part in Commander. Akori Dust Drinker, 6th place. Next up 3 from last year. I was going to say an oldie but a goodie, an oldie but a baddie. 5th place, Grand Arbiter Augustin the 4th. Salt score of 2.57. 2/3 Human Advisor for 4 mana. In Azorius, white spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast. Again, cost reduction for you. Cost, increases for your opponents. So, yeah, being able to, well, cast things a lot cheaper for yourself and be like, oh, wait, your things cost more? Oh, by the way, I'm also going to play this other stacks piece that makes your things cost even more than that. And this other stacks piece that slow things down to a crawl. Yeah, this kind of a commander is one that really can annoy players a lot. Definitely up there in the salt score for that. Moving on. Jin-Gitaxias Core Augur. One that typically isn't seen as a commander itself, but a card in the 99. Regardless, either way, it is incredibly salt-inducing. 2.65 on the salt scale. 4th place, actually down 1 spot from last year, was 3rd place. A 5/4 Praetor with Flash for 10 mana in blue. Again, the cost of a card has nothing to do with its salt score, apparently. Players are just like, yeah, I don't care that they cost 10. You're going to find a way to get into play and annoy the table. At the beginning of your end step, draw 7 cards. Each one's maximum hand size is reduced by 7, making it 0. So, yeah, that player, again, gets to draw all of the cards, and all the opponents are like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just top decking for the rest of the game. Let's see how that goes for me. Probably not well. So, yeah, there's a reason why this one is up there. Moving on. Turgid, God of Salt. I will always call it that because the second that this one was spoiled, it's like, Wizards, what are you doing? Seriously, what are you doing, Wizards? What in the world? 2.72 on the Salt scale. Down 1 from last year, though. Placed 3rd right now. 4/5 God with Menace for 5 mana in black. For opponent sacrifice a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard on the battlefield under control. This is It That Betrays, but better in the command zone for 5 mana instead of, what, 12 or whatever that one is? What in the world were you thinking, Wizards? Oh, and by the way, there's a backside of the card where if you have infinite mana, you just win. Ledger Artifact for 4. Turgid's Lantern. Turgid's Lantern, tap for, target player losing 3 life unless they sacrifice a non-land permanent or discard a card. By the way, pay 3 to black, untap it. So again, if you have infinite mana, you do that infinite number of times. Basically, Torment of Hailfire, as many as you want. But yeah, the front side is what you got to worry about most of the time. Basically just, hey, oh, okay, mass discard, mass eat effects, and all of a sudden, I steal your things and win. It's obnoxious. It's too easy. And yeah, there's a reason why this one is so salt-inducing. Moving on, the saltiest of all the Praetors, Vorinclex, Voice of Hunger. 7/6 Praetor with Trample for 8 mana in green. Down 1 from last year. This was number 1. 2nd place, salt score of 2.88. And this one says, whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana to your mana pool of any tapped land produced. When your opponent taps a land for mana, that land doesn't untap during the controller's untap step. This is salt-inducing. More so, it doesn't see as much play as a commander, but in the 99, you get double the mana, and your opponent's basically at half the mana. This is just stacks. This is just straight up stacks. Making it so your opponent's lands don't untap, yeah, that's stacks. So being able to, just do this with a 7/6 trampler that doubles your mana is pretty obnoxious, and players don't like to play against that, as you can see the salt score. Now, when it comes to number 1, there's kind of a slight thing we need to mention about this one. Nadu was so salty that it was banned. Nadu Winged Wisdom in 2024 was the saltiest commander for a reason, shattering the numbers when it comes to salt scores this year. 3.04, the only commander over a 3 on the salt scale. First place, not on the list 2023 because it was made in 2024. 3/4 Bird Wizard flying for 3 mana in Simic. Creatures you control have, whenever this creature comes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library if it's a land card, put it on the battlefield, otherwise put it in your hand. Triggers only twice each turn. per creature, so that's not really a limitation at all. This can go kind of like pseudo-infinite with a couple of things like Shuko and Scoot Swarm and things like that. Like pseudo-infinite, basically, where it's like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to win or not, but like I might. I mean, Scoot Swarm probably will, like once get to a certain point, but like Spore Mound, those kind of things. Being able to just freely equip things or freely target things with certain abilities. Yeah, being able to just get free value off the top of your library in a very long, convoluted solitaire turn. Players don't like playing in solitaire, and this is just obnoxious solitaire, where it's like, okay, and now I do this. Oh, look how clever I am with my Shuko. Oh, no one ever thought of that before. Yeah, this is a card that probably should have been banned right away when they designed it, and they did not do so, and it got banned pretty quickly considering how quickly cards get banned in Commander. And actually, it got banned in the other formats first. And yeah, there's a reason why this salt-inducing card was banned. Again, when it comes to like the bans, players might argue for some of the other cards to be unbanned. I don't think anyone's arguing for Nadu to be unbanned. Again, the saltiest card in 2024 when it comes to Commanders for a reason. Jumped up there to first place immediately on the salt scale. Very impressive, Nadu, but so impressive and so salty that you were banned. Congratulations for the title, though, from 2024. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Make sure you comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support.